To me, it's a bittersweet moment. I went through the Holocaust, and we're faced with a Holocaust now also, but we have to go on. And I would like to tell the story of my life in Shanghai, but it's not graphic. How we lived the total true life. Ahavas Hashem, Yirat Hashem, Achdus, and all the elements that make Yiddishkeit what it is and what it grew up to be. I'm going to be doing a presentation in pictures because that was my mother's favorite thing, pictures and stories and telling pictures of stories. I am going to be talking about Achdus, my father, who his whole life is nothing but good. And before the war, during the war, and after the war, to save any Eid, the Telem Elokim, any Eid. And I owe a gratitude to my daughter, Rabbi, when I was compromised, insisted I have to tell my story. And she kind of ingrained it into me that the story has to be told as a legacy. And then it became a family business because all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren got involved in this project. And I owe a special haftarah to Rabbi Lau when I was instrumental in getting him into the museum at the Holocaust Museum here in Chicago. And he stood up, and I didn't see Rabbi Lau, but I saw a 6-year-old little boy trying to tell the story. And he said, remember and don't forget. And we owe it to each and every one of us to remember and not forget. I just want to share one other point with you today, where we had to tell a yediyah to my brother, and it was painful. And he quoted the Chaya, and he said, quote, mit kleinen Sorgen, als ist schlecht, aber mit keinen Sorgen, es tut weh. We're going through some difficult times now. It's left, but we have to continue to say, as to faith. So let's get started now with our program. And we have the PowerPoint. I don't hear any sound.
Later.
It's later?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. You have to tell them when you want to go to the next slide.
Okay, I'll go. Okay, I can to the next slide. I want to tell you about my family's background. Oops. This is a famous picture of the Chaya. Chaya is sitting in the front on a bench. Circled from there is my father, Rebbetzin. In back of the Chaya is his wife and his children. How do I come to the Chaya? My father's father was Aaron Aaron. My mother's grandfather was Rabbi Londinski. The Chaya and Rabbi Londinski were the Rosh Yeshiva together in Garden. Because he was elderly, my mother, being the oldest daughter in her home, would be sent to take care of the Zayda. The Zayda, my grandfather, had a daughter, Begala Zaks, who became a friend to my mother. So between, she always used to say, 19, but they shared one house with a door between them. Then we go to the next slide. This is winter. This is my father's beloved Dalton. My mother's Sylvia Dalton, and the little girl she's holding is myself. My mother prided herself that I was also to live, that her great-grandfather, Rabbi Londinski, was able to live to have me as a child and to give from him was my baby carriage. We go to the next slide. What I want to talk about is Pirkei Avos, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד, על הטובה, על העבודה, ועל גמילות חסדים. Those are the things that we have to live by because the world stands on Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. Let me go to the next slide. Let's go to, can you back up? No, up.
Forward.
Tell me forward. Forward.
Next slide.
Okay. When we were in Lukács, my father had a Stella. My father was not one of the younger boys. He was an older boy. He had a Stella. And one of we were in Lukács when the Bolsheviks came in, and one of the officers said, Rabbi, you have to run. And my father said, no, where am I going to run? We're here. You have to run. And we knew that we were at war with the Germans, and we knew that the Germans were the most sophisticated, aristocratic, cultured, educated, everything there. Why would we run away from the Germans? We knew the war would be over, and everything would be good. Nothing will happen, the most sophisticated nation in the world. But my father didn't listen to reason, and my father went to a garden where his brother was a yeshiva, a time gardener. And he sent my mother to stay in Rab with her parents. After a while, my father asked my mother to come and join him in the garden. I'm sorry, in Vilna. I'm sorry. My mother didn't want to. Then her father said to her, "Mein Kind, that game with ein man is. My child, you have to go where your husband is." And we went on a horse and buggy, the way you see here, in the bitter cold. And we made a trek trying to cross the border. The first time we crossed the border, we were caught. On that wagon, open wagon in bitter cold, seeing the people, all they took with them is what they had on the bag and the baggage in their hand. My mother had her brother labeled. When we were running, they were shooting at us to jump off the wagon the first time. The second time, also we had no luck. And on the third time, my grandfather, that's Chaya, had a trusted worker, and he asked to try again to take my mother across the border. My mother and three small children, one was 3, one was 2, and an infant of 9 months. My mother was 22 or 20 years old, gathered in the wagon with the balabala, and we made the trip. On the way, and the trip we stopped off at the barn, and we were in the barn while the workers went into the home, and my mother sat on the floor with the 3 children wrapped around with a blanket. In the middle of the night, the farmer's son came in and was sharpening a knife, and my mother was whimpering under the blanket, holding us and crying, and saying, "My child, we came so far, they're going to kill us." But the fate would have it, he did not kill us. And early in the morning, at the third time, we went on that wagon, horse and buggy, snow all over, and the volleyball was beating the horses to go faster, faster. We got closer to the border, and he's whipping the horses, and I see it like today. I feel the snow. I feel the mist air of the nostrils coming out of the horses. I hear the shooting of the rider butts and the beating of the horses faster, 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 faster. And then all of a sudden he pulled the reins and we crossed the border. And this on his third attempt, we ended up in Vilna. And this is your typical horse and buggy Cadillac ride that we took. Let's go to the next slide. This obviously to Vilna. Whoever came to Vilna, this was a mode of transportation. This was their housing. We stayed with my uncle at Chaya, but most people were in the open wagon, looking for a way to get out of Vilna. And as you know, all doors were closed. All ears were closed. And nothing was good but help. Go to the next slide. But it was kindness. We lived with kindness. And the kindness was in, let's go to the next slide. In Vilna, in front of the council, GHETTO. And this is something that's been bothering my mind all the time. The whole miracle of Shanghai is not the norm. The miracle of Shanghai, I think, is a miracle, bigger miracle than we have experienced in prior years. I would like to talk to you about 3 people that were involved in this miracle. Can we go to the next slide? The 3 righteous Gentiles, to the left, GHETTO Council in Vilna. Short time, she was there less than 3 months. Nay, defended Chaya, and then Jan from the Netherlands. And they came up with a convoluted idea that we were going to go from Vilna all to Russia, then Siberian Railroad, stop off in Japan for 3 days, and then go on to Kurosawa, to Jan, who was involved. Now, who in the right mind, Polish refugees from the shtetl or the big town, would undergo such a trip to go to Siberia? We knew for sure once you go to the Gulag, you're never getting out of Siberia. But yet, we took that chance and we went and asked for visas. Let's go to the next slide. GHETTO, next, and his wife. So next, I'll get to Jan later. Stayed up day and night, handwritten visas to give to the refugees. Around his council, there were lines of people who will get a visa, who won't. Interestingly enough, GHETTO was a Subaru officer. The emperor was foremost in everything that had to be done to listen. 3 times, there's a lot of 3s in this presentation, 3 times he asked the emperor for permission to give visas to the refugees. And 3 times the emperor refused. And in spite of all that, he gave the visas. Now here's the other miracle. Why would Russia let us go to her? Why would Russia give permission that these refugees should be able to go all from Moscow to Vladivostok, get a boat in Vladivostok, and go to Kurosawa, or go to Japan and then Kurosawa? As we took that chance. Let's go to the next slide. We got on the rickety boat in after we crossed the border, and I'll come to the border later. After we crossed our shelves, up to that later, there was Nate. Nate was also a Japanese diplomat, officer, and she did not want to give us permission once we got to Vladivostok to get on the boat to go to Japan. And somehow he changed his mind, and even though the emperor said to him also no, we went across and he let us go so that we should be able to get to Japan. So you have the second righteous Gentile. Let's go to the next. We're back in Vilna. This is the Vaxal. This is the train station. To me, this was the most frightening experience, worse than going on the cart, horse and cart. It was a balagan. And I remember meeting with Mr. Malamed, who's the CEO of the Mercantile Exchange here in Chicago. And I spent a long time with him. I said, Mr. Malamed, what was your most frightening experience of the whole trip? And he said, the train station. And he said, my mother did not let go of my hand for a whole month until, I'm quoting Mr. Malamed, would not let go, get hold of my hand until we got on the boat. To me, the sight, my father was running around trying to see where we're going. My mother was holding on to 3 children. Nobody knew what was coming off. The rush of that Vaxal is till today frightening to me. Let's go to the next slide. This was our trip that we went from Moscow, from Moscow to Vladivostok via the railroad, the Trans-Siberian Railroad. It was a trip of 5,772 miles. We were jam-packed. Facilities were not there. No water, no food. A 3-week trip. But we stuck it out. And what I remember most about it, here I was a little girl, 6 years old. And every so often the train would stop and we would get off the train to relieve ourselves. And there was a Bolshevik soldier with a gun watching me, a 6-year-old little girl. Where was I going to run? But the sight of a knife, a gun, all these things terrify me. And when I see it till today, it is so ingrained, the fear of the uniform, the fear of the soldier. And my parents on the train also instilled us, you do not say a word. You keep quiet. All you can say is, "Dai me getting stakan chai." Give me a glass of tea. We were sworn not to talk, not to raise our voices, as though somebody put a gas in our mouth. And that trip of 3 weeks was sitting, I don't know, we were sitting and sleeping. We were on that train for 3 weeks. Let's go to the next slide. This is our 3-day visa to be in Japan. We were allowed to stop over just for 3 days, receive a pass, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, and I. But we didn't stay in Japan for 3 days. We were there for 1 year. And this is the other miracle of this 1 year. Let's go to the next slide. This was the boat that took us from Vladivostok, yes. This is the boat that took us from Vladivostok to Suraga, the port in Japan. And we'll see the port now. By the way, this boat is still in existence. We are coming into Japan. Next. This is the port of Suraga. When we landed in Salaga, there was a different culture. The people were dressed differently, their customs were different. And we were in the boat, and as a welcome from the Japanese, we heard the clanking of the shoes, and they were throwing baskets of tangerines to us. We haven't had food for days and days, but we wanted those tangerines, and my mother, being so afraid of the attempts that were made that we wouldn't survive, but she said, don't touch any of the food, it's poison, they will kill us. But the Japanese, not only did they welcome us, but it was the most exciting year that we had spent in Japan. Salaga, Leo Malamed, has built a museum to honor and say thanks to the Japanese for what they have done to him. Let's go to the next. These were the yeshiva people who came to Japan. You notice there's what they wore on their clothing and the bags that they carried. That's what all that they had. But remember one thing that I keep reminding us all the time. We had freedom. Wherever we went, we were free to go around. We lived. We were not in camps. We were not on marches. We were not being counted left, right. We had food. Whoever had money was able to buy food. Whoever didn't was shared. It was a hard life. It was a brutal life, but it wasn't. We were living. Go to the next. I want to show you what it's like. We had housing in Japan. They put it up. Our house went on top of the hill, and down the hill there was a shore, and further up the hill there was a Buddhist temple. It was a beautiful, beautiful house. Japanese homes are very minimalistic. There's one room that is open, nothing is locked, everything is open and free, honesty, cleanliness, epitomes in Japan. This was a room that was a living room, dining room, bedroom, everything on the floor, almost no furniture. When you ate, you would sit on the floor, and in back of every house, there was a water and washing, cleanliness, and minimalistic was the most important thing. Impeccably clean. And we had an apartment like a room like this where we lived in. So go to the next slide. See it? This is very interesting. This is my deportation card from my uncle that was Londinski, the son of Moshe Londinski, Rosh Yeshiva in Garden, where he guarantees for us $4,500 money. I don't know if he has the money, but he guaranteed us so that we should not be an expense to anyone in out of the states where we were. We'll go to the next one. This is Japan. When in Japan there were two families. The Chaya, they welcomed us. They treated us like we were the intelligentsia. We were the yeshiva world. We were the aristocracy as far as they were concerned. So we had playground to play in. So the next. The women brought us clothing and food and money. And whatever we needed, they were there for us. We had beautiful homes that we lived in. We would go shopping in the market. Everything was so impeccably clean. We thought we were in paradise compared to what we went through. Let's go to the next one. Here is a reception that we have in Japan. And the reason I picked this picture is I tried to bring in as many pictures that have something to do with Chicago to show you the people who were there and how they ended up in Chicago. That's what I was looking through all these pictures. If you look in the front, third person from the right, you're looking at the same Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi. if you recognize him, as the one, he ended up in Chicago, never went to New York when we came from San Francisco. He just remained in Chicago. And for you, Rabbi Mordecai, you were in the yeshiva, I wanted to have that picture. Let's go to the next. Then all of a sudden, everything changed for us. The Japanese were allies with the Germans. They wanted us all to be killed. They wanted the Japanese to put us in a boat, put us on the water, sink the boat. History shows that the Japanese had tremendous holocaust for the Jews, because when they had the war with the Russian Japanese war, it was ships who funded the war. So they always knew the Jews were important people, Japanese. Japanese, they put us on the boat, but instead of sinking the boat, they brought us to Shanghai. Shanghai was under Japanese rule. They had a domain in Shanghai, and the only safe haven that we had was to go to Shanghai. And then I'll tell you the contrast between our life in Shanghai and, of course, the haven that was Japan. Let's go to the next. This was still in Japan. There's no one here that you could recognize from Chicago, but it was a convention. How are we going to leave Japan? We had no place to go, but of course it came out as we went to Shanghai. Let's go to the next. Okay. Interesting picture surrounded by, you see the Amshin of the Rebbe, and you see Mr. Petrucci. Next to him, to the left, is the Shlomo Shapiro. Mr. Petrucci came from a home of priesthood, and he was interested in God and the Talmud. One day he walked into an old gift shop, bookstore, and he found the Talmud. And he taught himself how to read Hebrew, and he studied the Talmud. Now here it is, we're going to Japan. Nobody speaks Japanese. We're ending up in Shanghai. This is still in Japan, nobody speaks the language. How are we going to communicate? It's like as Shem filled the bell, he spoke a perfect Hebrew. The Amshin of the Rebbe spoke a perfect Hebrew. The refugee spoke a perfect Hebrew. There was our translator. And then when we went to the government to ask them to let us stay longer in Japan as opposed to the 3 days, was nothing. So Chushi raised money, paid off the officials, and we were able to stay for 1 year. Next Hanukkah, next Purim, nothing like next a stay in Japan for 1 year. I wanted to know, in Japan I went to school. I spoke Japanese. I wrote Japanese. My little neighbors across the street, my Japanese friends, we would come there. My father said the only thing I can eat in their house is rice. And they would come to us. And this is the first time that I had, in all the years, had a little friend to play with. So to me, the Japanese people have a special feeling and place in my heart. And of all the places, a Japanese man should know how to speak Hebrew. So let's go to the next slide. Here is Rabbi Shmulevich, and here is Petrucci, but his first name is Abraham. Abraham converted at the age of 60. and Abraham is buried in Har Menuchos. Abraham paid off to every one of the people who borrowed money for hours for saving us, that he died a pauper. And Rabbi Shmulevich, my father was very close to him, and Rabbi Shmulevich respected him, because if it was not for him, we wouldn't have had the chance to build up the melucha of us we were able to build up. So these are my righteous people of kindness that was given to Am Yisrael in the most unique way. Let's go to the next. We're coming to Shanghai. We'll go to the next slide. Shanghai was known as the Unterwelt. It was the underworld. Anyone could come in, anything would go. Shanghai was split into 3 sections. You had Frenchtown, which was the epitome of wealth, the Sarkozy buildings that till today I haven't seen architecture like that, right on the Bund, and the wealthy Iraqis lived there from Iraq and Baghdad. You had the Sassoon, you had the Kaduris. The Kaduris, till today, they own Hong Kong, the Peninsula Hotel in Chicago, Kaduris. They welcomed us because we were the learned people, the men of God, and the respect they gave for us. They built a school for us that we would be able to have a refugee, the school in the ghetto, and also in settlement. In the center in red is Hongsu. Hongsu is where they called the ghetto. It was a square mile, where over 80,000 people lived there. The filth, the disease, the debauchery that went on there is beyond imaginable. And next to it is a section called settlement that was owned by the British. We were in Hongsu. The German Jews who came in 38 and 39 settled in Frenchtown or in settlement. I go next. This is a map of Hongsu. It is 1 square mile, and in that 1 square mile were 30,000 Jews and 50,000 hooligans, Chinese, and with that, all walks of life. Next. This is also how we came with our valuables into Shanghai. I picked out this picture because right away, right on top, in the hat, is Danny Lipman, former Chicagoan. I think if anybody from Chicago remembers him, it's Danny Lipman, and that's why I put this picture in. And all the way to the left on the first row is a young man, Kamyan. Kamyan in Japan had a breakdown. Actually, in Vilna, he had a breakdown when he realized the war was what it was. And so 2 of these Sheba Bacharim looked out for him, took care of him, recently passed away, and we all watched over him to see that he can go with us and continue being with us. Let's go to the next. When we came to Japan, to Shanghai, when the Germans prohibited the Jews, all faithful people had to move into the ghetto. The German Jews who came and settled in Frenchtown or settlement were all of a sudden taken out of their home, and they had to move into the ghetto. It was very, very hard for them to adjust to it. because life in the ghetto, if you had one room, you were lucky. Sometimes the family had to have one room, but they had to share it with someone else. Let's go to the next. When we were in the ghetto, Chaya, the Japanese that you see there, was in charge of giving out permits to go from the ghetto to either Frenchtown or settlement. Now, if the Jews had jobs in either Frenchtown or settlement, they would get a permit from Chaya. But otherwise, it was like he just, at his whim, he would let you have a permit or would not let you have a permit. I got a permit from Chaya because I wasn't well. I had to go to the doctor. We did have medical doctors in the ghetto because a lot of the Germans that came into Shanghai were people of means. If you didn't have money, there was no way you could have gotten transport. So you had the upper echelons who worked there with us. So we had a hospital, we had doctors in the ghetto itself. But we wanted to have a second opinion, so we went to Chaya. I came with my father, and I knew you have to keep quiet, you can't utter a sound, you have to do anything. We wanted to know why I wanted the permit. My father told him, we have a doctor's appointment. So he told my father to put his, after time, to put his head on the table. He reached into his side, took out a saber, and raised it above his head, and I knew it was going to come down on my father's head because the Japanese are very quick to chop off the head. I closed my eyes. I had no sound. The sword came down, and when I opened up my eyes, my father's beard was gone, but he was okay. The permit I got, take out the next page, you'll see the permit I got. And we go to, that's the permit I got. That was my fingerprint showing where I'm going. It's a one-day permit. But I have never wanted to go out again to have that experience to get another permit. Let's go to the next. Typically in Shanghai was a delta. And when it would rain, the waters would come up high. Waste was floating in the waters, and people would navigate through that waste. The aroma, the stench, the filth was so unbearable, but we had freedom. Go to the next. Your typical typhoon. People going in little boats just to make it to get around. Go to the next. Luckily, we had a very beautiful, beautiful house, but it was only one room. In back of that one room, we had a backyard. So if you look at the pictures myself, I must have been about 10, my sister Esther, next to me, my brother, and a friend in the same courtyard. In the summertime, it was humid and hot. We had to use umbrellas because it was the sun was so high. And this is our backyard. Let's go back, another one. This was where most of the people lived. It was a single family home, but every room was used for one family. And again, if there were only two people in the family, they would have to share. So there were 4 people in one room, a curtain dividing them. There was no running water. There were no bathrooms. We had the ritual every morning is the honey pots were put out in front of the house, and these people would come with the car to pick up the honey pots, which were the little parties, and the other shift was in a cart, the dead bodies. So when you would get up in the morning and you would go out of your house and walk into the sidewalk, you would see the pile of dead bodies, and you could see the pile of honey pot. And that is ingrained in my mind, those two scenes. You couldn't leave your laundry out because the theft was impossible, the poverty was impossible, and the filth was unbearable. Disease all over. Go to the next. And again, one more thing, we lived and we looked out for each other. This is a typical way of making a living. There was a rickshaw. You look at the coolie, his feet are bandaged. He has no shoes. Rabbi Shmulevich gave an eddy, so we cannot use a coolie because he's a human being, and he's not treated like an animal. Once I took the rickshaw because I was caught in a typhoon. I was terrified. I went to the butcher to chef the chicken, and I felt I was going to be blown away, so I went into the rickshaw and came home. But we were not allowed, some people, to use a rickshaw. Let's go to the next. Your typical street in Shanghai. This was post-war, so it's not so crowded. But the stores, everything is the same as it was in 1941 and 42. Nothing has changed. Let's go on. Our Torah life that we lived. Can we go to the next slide? This picture was actually taken in Japan. And if you look closely, there's a picture of Rabbi Nyman, Chicago, my father, Rabbi Walton. And what is this picture about? The international dateline. When is Pesach? When is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur? And how do we fast? And do we fast one day or do we fast 2 days? And some people just fast for 1 day, others 2 days. Hot, humid, wet, no water for 2 days. That's inhumanly unbearable, but it was done. Because the belief that everything will be good. The Amunah, the Aftus, the Ahavat Habriyah in Shanghai was just unbelievable. Let's go to the next. This is the famous synagogue that Hadun built in Shanghai. In the 1920s, when every one of the wealthy mega millionaires built a show, Sassoon built one, Kaduri built one, imported the most magnificent synagogues that you've ever seen in your life. Hadun, who had no children, married a Chinese woman, adopted 14 children. In his later years, his father came to him in a dream. In his dream, his father said, how come everybody built up a synagogue of memories of the family, and you, as one of the wealthiest people here in Shanghai, you have nothing as a memory for me? So he built a show, and it was empty because he built it right near the ghetto. Nobody was there because the wealthy people were in Benchtown. The other wealthy people were in settlement, and this is in the middle of nowhere. What is interesting about the show is there were 224 seats. And what's interesting about those seats is that the yeshiva people were exactly 224 people. Now, this was not all the mere yeshiva. The people who were there learning were from every yeshiva in Europe. Remember, these boys were between the ages of 16 and 21. They left the families behind to take a chance to escape Europe. In Europe at that time, all the isms started out. Buddhism, socialism, all the isms. And they wanted a different life. They wanted the Torah to life. So that they left home, their poor house, their families, and came and went on to Vilna, where they were able to get visas. The other interesting thing in Europe, every single yeshiva was destroyed. There wasn't a single zeicher of Europe. Completely eradicated. And the way I look at it, a Kodesh Baruch Hu took out a little cluster of beautiful flowers and transplanted them in Shanghai. And from this group in Shanghai is what we have now today in America. The rebuilding with so much mesiras nefesh. Nobody was looking to do anything but rebuild and continue a Torah way of life. Let's go into the next service. Let's go on. This is the Ohel Moshe Shul. Rabbi Ashkenazi, who was a Lubavitcher in Harbin, when things were not going so well there, he moved to Shanghai. This is not the original shul. The shul was destroyed. It was rebuilt almost to a replica of what it was. Everything and anything that went on was in that shul. At Pesach time, it was just Pesach, and people were asking me how did we do in Shanghai. We would come out. What did we have? One pot, 5 pieces of silverware. Don't forget, we left Europe with nothing but just what we had on our back. And we would go into the hay and kasher the dishes and Pesach the chametz. If we had matzah, when matzah was sold out, no more than 3 matzahs to a person, but we had matzah. In the ghetto itself, once the Jews had to leave Frenchtown and settlement, they made little biemas in the ghetto. So we had a school. I went in settlement to a bit of school. When I was 12 years old, when the war was over, I was 12 years old. My education was such that I came to America. They put me into high school. I went to a bit of school, spoke British, the King's English, which I still call the King's English, and I had an extensive education. So we had the school. We had publishing. A lot of the people from Germany who came in, they were musicians. So we had doctors in hospitals and music and publishing and theater and art. We had a sheikhet. We had a normal, hard, beautiful life. And it's wartime, but we lived to the fullest extent. The people who didn't have, we helped. I want you to know, in the yeshiva, I must mention that because that is important to me. How did we have money when the European Jews came in? Where did they have the money from? Rabbi Kalmanovich, Rabbi Henkin, Esher Torah, Hayaz, all brought in money to Shanghai. That money was sold out to the yeshiva people. That was a little bit, $100, $50, whatever it was. And even any of the German Jews who wanted to be in the yeshiva would get the money from the yeshiva also. The only bad thing about this was that you couldn't have American dollars. So many times my father was involved in distributing money. So I, as a little girl at the age of 10 or 11, would get little bags. My father would call it corruption, and I believed him because we did not have much food, and I delivered that money to different people. Corruption of the American dollars, if you were caught with American dollars, you knew that was the end of your life. So we had money brought in to the American people for us to live in Shanghai. We had, after the war, Chaya came and helped. What the generosity of world Jews to us was beyond amazing. Let's go on to the next. Oh, it's hard for me to read. It was a typical report card. It is not mine, it's my friend's. It tells you the subjects. Anyone who's an educator would love to see the expensive subject that we took. We had sports was very important. Penmanship was important. Behavior was important. But manners were important. It was a different way of education. Go to the next. We were outside. We children had play activities, the younger ones who did not go to school. Next. This is Danny Lippman again, all the way on the right. The woman in the middle, a German Jew. I told you everybody was welcome at the same time. Eva Schulhoff, who gave me a love of studies and a love of teaching. And I'll never forget her. German Jew took him into the fold. Next. We had a base shackles. After our public school, this was my class. I'm the second from the left. We had a base shackles after school. Go to the next. This is the whole school. And all the way in the front, 1, 2, 3, third or fourth from the left is Rebbetzin Esther Levin. She was a little girl of about 6. And also you'll see the teacher, one of the teachers, is Rabbi Rabbi's daughter, Rebbetzin Esther Kibbash. What I'm trying to say, we lived. This was a wartime, but we lived. Let's go to the next. These were the Jews from Chabin, where they also had a Talmud Torah. Because Chabin was hard to live, so they all came to Shanghai. Next. The mixed marriage. One of the yeshiva boys, Rabbi Yossele Eisenstein, Chicagoan, married Hilda, a German woman. Called this the mixed marriage. And all this way in the front, you will see my mother, myself, my brother, Esther Levin, and my sister Esther. Notice how they were dressed. Nothing was new. Everything was borrowed. But this is, you see, second from the left is Rebbetzin Levin. And when I look at her here and I see her in school, she looks the same to me. Can we go to the next? Thank you, Rabbi Matanki, for putting in this picture. This is a picture that was taken. They lived also in settlement. This is Rabbi Ashkenazi's daughter, who married HaShoah Milner, who was the top boy at the yeshiva at that time. And right in back of her, of Manya, is Rebbetzin Rishel Kotler. Rebbetzin Rishel Kotler was a young girl of 17, 18 when she was a caller too at Shreya Kotler. She ended up in Shanghai. She had no place to stay. So Rabbi Kotler asked Rabbi Ashkenazi if Rishel can stay with them. He only had a two-room apartment, and Rishel stayed with them till after the war. We're all, and next to Rishel is Yankel Bushel's mother. Yankel Bushel, who's now of the yeshiva in Jersey. Again, you see that we lived a full life. Next. My home. This is my big, big house. It is one room. The reason for the biggest room because it was a living room, and in back was another family, the curtain behind it. You see, I'm all the way in the front. Next to me is my sister. Rabbi is there. My father, of course, is there. And all the buffalo used to come to my bed. The table is set, a mixed match of silverware. But Shabbos, we had every Shabbos, we were together, one group of people. Until today, third and fourth generation, we're still so tightly connected because most of them were single boys. You had maybe 15 or 20 married men. These boys, we became surrogate parents, the married men to all of them, or the boys that were married off at a young age. But we had the table, family. When everybody left, my bedroom was the floor, no bathrooms, so it was the outside. Water, we had running water. Thank God. The kitchen was so atrocious, my mother couldn't take it. So we would cook outside. Today, you'd call it a barbecue. In our time, we called it whatever you want to call it. We made our own cold ball. So let's go to the next. We didn't have news. And if we wanted to find out the news, we would have the paper on the outside. We did have printing there. And we did have publishing, and we did have the German newspapers and Yiddish papers also. Go on to the next. That was the soup kitchen. You notice these are all German Jews. And so we had a soup kitchen. They suffered the most because we came in as a group and we had a connection to America. They came in as individuals, and they suffered the most. For them, life was very, very difficult. And we had a soup kitchen, and my father also himself had a soup kitchen. Let's go on to the next. Here's a soup kitchen in the alleyway. And whoever wanted to come, everybody was welcome. Let's go to the next. These are German Jews also at the soup kitchen. Go on. The Americans liberated us. And here, they wanted to see how we cooked. We had no stove, so we did it on the outside. Let's go on to the next. This is our Amma. Our Amma was a young girl, Chinese, with no family. So my mother took her into our home. She took care of us. She didn't want any wages. All she wanted was a meal. So in Shanghai, my mother had a housekeeper. Go on to the next. And this is our Uma. Our Uma was a German lady. She had nothing. And my mother took her into our home, and she took care of my brother Chaim. My brother Chaim is a little boy. He is now in Yerushalayim. He's my Mashgiach Buchni. He was always with Rabbi Shmulevich, and now he's with Rabbi Mizrahi. You notice I had one dress. Everybody had one dress. We would have for Shabbos and one for during the week. And once a year, we would get either a pair of shoes or a dress. But we all looked well kept and together. Let's go on. This was a Japanese who risked his life when I was sick, got me penicillin, actually it was sulfur from the dispensary. And he became a member in our family. We called him the general. He had a very high position there. Go on. Next. My mother. This was always a glamour girl. And next, our family. that was taken in our house. You see the curtains in back because there was a door. My father, my mother, and the 3 children, my brother Chaya. Next one. This is my haunted picture. This is our passport picture. We did not, this is after the war. We did not know where we were going. But look at the eyes and look how terrified and frightened everybody is. And I always say, one picture is worth 1,000 words. My father is gray here. And I realized afterwards what caused it. When my father in Shanghai found out that he had lost his whole family, and he was sitting on a bench and crying, we asked him, nobody ever said anything. We never knew anything. They never talked. That was the bad thing about that generation. They wouldn't talk. The next day, my father was white. And I feel because my children have encouraged me, especially my oldest daughter, encouraged me to tell the story, I am doing it now. Because it's an injustice not to know what is really going on. Go on to the next. That's the Mesa Aaron, my grandfather's paper that was published in Shanghai, and you see in the bottom, it says Shanghai. Go to the next. My father's voice, and you see in the front row is Rabbi Kagan, Chicago. And all the way in the back is Kamyan, also, with a beard. And the reason I picked that, I'll show you why, with a picture, with a paper I found. Let's go to the next. I found this paper that was available to Kamyan, people who live in Evanston. I found this last year in my possession because we have a lot of stuff, but I could never dare open anything. And it's on Sheridan Road, a small house. People still live there. They sponsored him. And I can't see from here, and I don't remember. But that's why I from Chicago. I think they had to show all their assets. They're still in business, and they still live there. Interesting. Let's go to the next. You can blow it up and look at it. This is my favorite picture. This, to me, represents light. This was the shelter. When the Americans bombed us, and they did bomb us, no casualties, as we had. We built our shelter because we knew that we would be buried together. We noticed either everybody had a baby in their hands or they were very pregnant. You have the past, the present, the future. You had the children, and you also had the actors, the German Jews that were there, who joined with us. When the bombs came down and we went into the shelter, the little kids would say, Aleph, Begim, Aleph. Others would say, Bidui. Others would cry. Others who didn't know what to do. This was the place we knew. This is our final resting place. But life went on, and we lived every minute the full meaning of what life has to be. In here is a story that when I lost my husband, I went to tell Rachel. Rachel Rebbetzin Klassel, we still on first name basis. And I went to her to tell her the idea. And she took me around and said, Chaya, mein Kind, ich hab dir gerettet. I saved you. I said, how did you? Let's hear the story. Don't you remember we were in the shelter and the bombs were coming down and your kitten was outside of the shelter and you ran to get the kitten. And I ran after you to get you, that you shouldn't be there in case the bomb will fall on you. And she dragged me back into the shelter. And she said, ich hab dir gerettet. I have saved you because the bomb fell not too far away. And this I found out several years ago when I came to tell her about this. So this was, to me, my favorite picture. Let's go on to the next. I think I'm taking too much time. Let's go on to the next. This was the general mix that took us to San Francisco. And very quickly, we came to San Francisco. They put us up in the nicest of hotels. We had about a month we stayed there, and then we chose to go on to New York because that's where the school was. Leaving San Francisco, we stopped off in Chicago for 4 hours and aimed right via the belt. The young boys who got off here in Chicago were taken into different homes. Those who had daughters remained, and they got married. Others who had families here went on to New York. We went on to New York. We ended up staying by my father's friend who was with him in Raden. My father and his friend shared the bed. And for the 4-hour layover, we were in his home. And who was my father's friend? None other than Rabbi Small. My husband at that time was 18. I was 12. And the rest is history. Let's go on. I went back to Shanghai because my daughter, I had to remember I needed the truth, and I told them about my home the way I described it. I told them things, and I had to have facts. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, said, I have 5 days I can give you. Would you want to go back to Shanghai? I grabbed that chance. Went back to Shanghai to find my home. This guy was 7 years old. He spoke English. He was an orphan, and the military taught him English. Let's go on. The next one. I found my home. This is a typical house that we lived in, but I lived in only one room on the first floor. On the third floor, where all the Shiva Bacharim, it was marked in back, is where they put up the housing for the floor. The front of the house had a watchman, and I remember the watchman living there to look out for us. Let's go on to the next. The courtyard. Outside of that courtyard, across the street, there was, we would call it a mall, an open marketplace where we would buy fruits and vegetables and fish. We did not have hot water. So in one of the stores, there was a hot water that we had to buy it. So we would use that for bathing. A Friday, once a week, we would have it. Once a week, we would have chicken. That I would go to the sheikh, and he would chef it in back of the Vienna restaurant. They had a restaurant there. But that chicken was shared between my parents and the other family, Rabbi Nyman. There were a total of, we were 5 of us, Rabbi Nyman was 7 of us. That one chicken, half each, lasted for 1 week. But we had food. Let's go on. In here were the horses. This was taken about 10 years ago. The Chinese still live there. Families live there. This is China 10 years ago. Okay, and still no running water, still no electricity, none of that. Let's go on. Your typical kitchen, it's for 3 people 10 years ago. The filth is still from pre-war. The alleyways there, the filthy missiles on the alleyway. In back of this kitchen, there is earth, and that's a bathroom. The honey pots were there. Let's go on to the next. That's it. What I'm trying to bring out is that we live a full, healthy life. It was a hard life. but the Achdus, the Yiras Shamayim, the Ahavat Habriyot, the Ahavat Adam. We don't have that. We miss that, and I wish we had more of it. I thank you for having me. I hope with this new math that is going on, we have our Shloshah Barim Ha'olam made. We have to be more into all these three traits and treat every person with Seder Panim Yafot, because we're all created with Telem Elokim. Now, if there are any questions, I'm free to answer.
Rebbetzin, I don't have everyone it open for everyone to be able to ask the questions, but if they want, they can type a message in the chat room and we can ask the question.
What? I didn't hear you.
Yes, Rebbetzin, everyone is muted right now, so it's a little hard for them to ask the question, but if they have a question, they can type those questions to everyone in the chat room. I'll give them a moment.
Rabbi Matanki, everybody is welcome to call. I answer the phones. I can answer all questions. They can look at all the pictures. They can welcome to do all of that.
And Rebbetzin, we're going to end then with a Kel Mully, since tonight is Yom HaShoah, and I'm going to ask Alan Sorsher, our Baal Tefillah, to please lead the Kel Mully.
Okay.
El Malei Rachamim, Dayan Almonos, Vavi Yisomim, Al Nosech Esher V'Sisapak, L'Dam Yisrael, Shenishpach, Kamoyim, Amitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachas Kanafei HaShechina, B'ma'alos Kedoshim Utehorim, Kizohar Harakia Mazirim, Es Nishmos, Sheishmeos Rivivos Alfei Yisrael, Anoshim, Vinoshim, Yiladim, Vilados, Chalalei HaShoah Be'Europa, Shenehergu, Vishenishchatu, Vishenisrifu, Vishenitbe'u, Vishenechniku, Vishenikberu, Chayim al Kiddush Hashem. Bidei Hamiratzchim Hanatzim, Huarurim V'Ozreihem, Mishar Hai Amim Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, Kulam Kedoshim Utehorim, Uvahem Geonim V'Tzadikim, Arzei HaLevanon V'Adirei HaTorah, B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasam, Ba'avur Shekol HaKohol HaKadosh Hazeh, Yitnu Tzedaka B'Yad Haskaros Nishmoseihem, Lachein Baal HaRachamim, Yastireim B'Seiser K'nafav Li'olamim, B'Yitzror HaChayim Es Nishmoseihem, Adonai Hu Nachalosam, V'Yizkor Lanu Akedasam, V'Samod Lanu Ulechal Yisrael Zechusam, Eretz Al Techasidamam, V'Al Yihi Mekom Lizakasam, B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasam, V'Yamdu L'Gor Olam L'Keit HaYomim, v'nomar amen.
I want to thank once again Rebbetzin Small for joining us this evening, for teaching us, sharing her story with us, and making this day so much more meaningful. I look forward to continuing to be the annex to the Smalls synagogue down the block. And we thank you. May you continue for many, many more years with health and with nachas from all of your family. Bis 120. Rebbetzin Small, once again, you were magnificent. Thank you so very much.